Hello there, slingers. Welcome back to another week of the Wordslinger podcast. I'm glad to have you here. Now, I've got a guest today. She's a new favorite of mine. I hope you're going to love her. I know you're going to love her, so stick around. We talk with Melanie Herschorn next.
It's the Wordslinger podcast, where story matters. Build your brand, write your book, redefine who you are. It's all about the story here. What's yours? Now, here's the guy who invented pants optional, Kevin Tomlinson, the Wordslinger.
Wordslinger.
This segment of the Wordslinger podcast is being brought to you by me. Now, if you'd like to support me and my work, this podcast, whatever else I'm doing, you can do that best by going and buying one of my books or a whole bunch of my books. Go to kevintomlinson.com/books, where you'll find an entire library of things waiting for you to discover. Go find your next new favorite read, and you'll be helping me out, which means I can continue to help you out. Well, I am Kevin Tomlinson, the Wordslinger. I'm glad to have you here. Now, I have to apologize. I took a little break last week. I got sick. Sorry. I tried. I pushed through as much as I could. Man, Tuesday was a wreck last week for me. I got nothing done. I did like my morning pages, the stuff that I like to post each day. If you're following me on social media, you've seen this, but I got that done. That's like a priority thing. I was a zombie the whole time I was writing that, and had said I had said that I was going to sit, make a little nest for myself, watch some TV, drink some fluids, and do some writing. I did some of that. I did make a nest. I did watch a little TV. I mostly slept all day, so sort of blinked, and my eyes opened late into the late afternoon. So, but I'm a little better. I'm better now. Got a little bit of congestion, so you may be hearing that. But I'm not going to delay you right now. I want to get into this interview with Melanie because she's a new friend. She's someone I interviewed for the Writers Inc. podcast. How I met her. And I've just realized as of this morning that episode won't air for a few months. So this is actually the first interview with Melanie, and I hope you'll enjoy it. And, stick around afterwards. We'll wrap things up. But I hope you're having a great day otherwise, and I'll see you on the other side of this interview. This is a first for me. I'm going to start off by saying that this is an absolute first for me in a decade plus of doing author interviews. This is the first time that I've done an interview first on the Writers Inc. podcast that I am now duplicating, as if you will, on the Wordslinger podcast. But I am talking to Melanie Herschorn, who is a wonderful person who deserves nothing but positive reviews on her books. We had a little conversation before this started, but Melanie, welcome to the Wordslinger podcast. I'm glad you're here.
Me too. Thanks so much for having me.
We won't go into the details unless you want to, of the nasty, mean girl review that you got on your book, but it was not deserved and was not a nice thing for someone to do.
No, it wasn't. And what I would love to go into is the part where first I read it and I got really angry.
Yeah.
So I was like, you solicited me for the book. I didn't reach out to you. And then I cried and I sat in my car and I sobbed and I sobbed. And then I stopped crying.
You should never cry over these things. They're not worth it. It's not worth it.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And I kept saying to myself, there's got to be a reason this happened. There's a reason this happened. Yeah. And I have been, over the past couple of weeks, I've been able to counsel others from a different place. In fact, that day I had a sales call with an author and she started to cry about a review that she had gotten on her book. And I said, you know what? I can understand this and it's okay to get upset and then you move forward. And I was able say
love
that
that.
from
Yeah.
a having gone through it myself only a couple hours earlier. So,
Yeah. See, I love that because that is not only is that a kind of lemonade from lemons kind of thing, but I mean, it does give you a framework for looking at when something goes wrong or something happens that you don't want in your life. Like you get to say, now I have that to use to help someone else. I like that. That's a very positive spin.
and I kept saying, well, if the Kardashians can take all the haters,
Yeah,
why can't I?
right. Yeah. Yes. That is the thing though, like the more we'll say notoriety, the more your notoriety rises, the more likely it's going to be that you're going to get some nasty reviews. So might as well prepare for it now.
Right. Got to get your first one out of the way.
Yeah, yeah. Is that your first? That's your first negative review? Is it the first?
No,
Oh,
it's
okay.
it was my first really bad book review, but
Yeah.
when I was on the radio, people would call me in the booth and tell me I was terrible in the middle of my shift.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah.
I haven't had that happen per se, but
Oh, because I mispronounced some, speaking of, words, like I'm so careful about pronunciation of words, but in the middle of Pennsylvania, people speak very strangely.
yeah.
And if I had to sort of guess on the fly, 10 times out of 10, I guessed wrong on the pronunciation.
So you just gotta, my whole thing, like back from my radio days, all the stuff I've done in media over the years, like you kind of learn to just roll with that. Like it has to be one of these scenarios where, I love the gag of, oh, I feel like I'm saying it. I feel like I said it right. And just let them get so mad.
At one time, there was this boy, he must have been about 9, and he won some award, and it was a story that I had to keep reading. I read it probably 3 or 4 times over the course of 3 hours, and I mispronounced his last name every single time. And then
Yeah.
the father called at the end of my shift to tell me that I had mispronounced. I was like, oh, I feel so terrible. I'm so sorry. So, but this predates podcasts.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. I do try to get the names right. And
yeah.
I mess it up a lot because I don't know. I don't know why. I especially if it's Asian names, unfortunately, I will butcher almost every time.
I think
I
it's
don't
because
know.
you're traumatized from being called Kelvin.
Yes, exactly. Oh, there's a callback. That's a callback. Nobody knows that story because that was on Writers Inc. But that's funny. I'm not going to tell them either.
You
I
have to
don't.
go listen.
You have to go listen to Writers Inc. Go find the interview I did with Melanie on Writers Inc. and you'll hear the whole story. Um, so I do want to talk a little bit about. I mean, I love that we can just chat, and I want this to be a chat. That's the whole point of the Wordslinger podcast, by the way. Is like it's a conversation between two people who like each other, and everyone gets to listen in if they want. But I do want to make sure we talk about your work a little because that's kind of the whole point of doing these things, right? So you do there's several things that you do, but you're a book marketing strategist. Tell me what that means. What does that mean?
So I help authors develop their online marketing platform and create a strategy to leverage their book and other people's audiences to get their book out in the world, their name out in the world, and to really create revenue streams from their book.
Okay. That's all you had to say.
Mm.
I did years ago, I used to do a talk. You notice how I just pivoted. Now, but years ago, I used to do a talk at like chambers of commerce and things like that. Called what did I call it? The the gist of it was that your book was the ultimate business card,
Oh yeah,
which I think is kind of in line with you, right? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. Is that the approach you take with because you mostly work with like attorneys and, and
Mhm.
and business owners and things like that.
Mhm. Um, it's So it's a business card, but that would be a really expensive business card, and Vistaprint has a much cheaper version of that. So I would say it's almost like your calling card, which I don't really know. We don't
Like
use
that old school thing. Yeah.
yeah, the old school thing.
Yeah.
It's like it's more than a business card, because a business card just really says like very little information about you. And
Yeah.
instead it's like a way to open up a portal for people to get to know you before they ever hire you. And
Yeah.
so they get to know everything about you and why you're amazing, and know that they should really go and hire you before they may even have had a phone call with you.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's the idea. That's the right idea. I mean, the thing, my whole premise of it was that nobody ever throws away a book. Like as soon
Mm,
as you get a business card, there's like a 2 hour window before that thing gets round filed. So if they don't take an action on that card, you're probably never going to take an action on it, right? But
yeah,
we're hardwired to hold on to a book.
right.
Yeah.
Although I think I have recycled one or two, but don't tell anybody.
Recycled. How do you recycle? Like you put it in a bin?
But there was a reason.
Okay.
There was a
Was
reason.
Now I'm not feeling so bad about your bad review. If you're like tossing
Oh,
books in bins, no.
no, no. It was recycled in that, like, where you go and you can drop books off at a library or
Yeah.
that kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
recycle. Yeah.
I was in a half price bookstore a couple weeks ago, and I was not in a great mood, and I was specifically there to kind of perk myself up. And I walked by the little desk where they are evaluating the books that, when you bring in a crate of books, they're going to buy it or whatever. And there was a guy with a big box of books, and I watched him take one and rip it right down the spine and throw it into a into a bin, and then grab another one. And like I had to walk away. I was so traumatized by that whole thing.
That's
That's what they do.
traumatizing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not what I did. That's traumatizing.
Yeah, that is traumatizing. That's wrong, man. Yeah. Somebody would have taken that book. That's what burns me about that kind of thing. But what are you going to do? That's their business model. So buy the books. That's the point of the story. It's
Yes.
make sure you're buying all those books so they don't get shredded. So, I mean, what have you been up to since the last time we talked, by the way? Like, you done anything new and interesting that we should cover?
I went to the LA Times Festival of Books.
Oh, okay. All right. How's
So
that?
it was a mixed bag. It
Do tell.
was huge.
Yeah.
And, there were a lot of people coming through to buy books, a lot of people just showing up because they don't have homes and they were just
Mm,
wandering around downtown LA. Um, and there were some authors who were interested in meeting publishers and book marketers to further their writing
yeah.
career. So it was a mixed bag, but it was really fun to be around authors. And there were a number of authors, children's book authors, nonfiction, fiction. They all had their own booths
Yeah.
and they had their own swag. And it was really like the energy of authors is really a special thing.
Do
So
you do you go to author conferences usually?
I have kids that are young enough that I can't get away very often
Uh,
to. So no, not really.
yeah. Yeah. I go to a lot, or have been to a lot. Maybe I may be slowing down on it now, but it's a great experience, but it can be exhausting.
Well, in my former life, when I was doing selling and designing breastfeeding clothing, I would go to this children's expo every year in Vegas and set up a booth for 3 days, stand there by myself
Yeah.
from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. and sell, right?
Yeah.
And so at first I was like, oh, this will be fun. I know how to set up booths. And then when I got there, I went, oh, I am just too old for this.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. I I can't do the booth anymore. I mean, toward the end of my time at Draft to Digital, like I was so over standing at a booth, especially with this, it's kind of pointless. Like I was much more effective going out and walking among the authors and
Yeah.
having conversations. It just works better.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely. And
yeah,
and I have to say that, as somebody who focuses more online,
yeah,
it made me, sort of think, well, what I do really makes a whole lot more sense than flying somewhere, setting up a stand, sitting there with your book and waiting for somebody to come.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I I really feel like that's the bigger value of conferences like that is not those. I mean, there's still plenty of people who want that information, and so having something central for them to find is good. But like the whole point, I think, is to get us for authors. Maybe this is true for other industries, but for authors, like we need that. We need some interface time, man. We need to walk around with and meet and greet people, be in the three-dimensional world for a while.
Yes. And a conference, definitely. The book fest,
Yeah. Yeah.
it-
Not as good. I don't think maybe I've never been to like a book fest except for like reader events at certain author conferences, but
right.
sounds like it's probably pretty similar. And in LA, so you got a nice variety of folks coming through.
Oh, yes. Quite a variety. It was wonderful for people watching. I was not bored for a moment.
Yeah. 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 That's good. That's good. That's the way you want it. If you're gonna have to be at an event like that, it should be good people watching, if nothing else.
It was
Um,
people watching.
so your clientele, do you work with anyone other than attorneys and like CEOs or whatever? Do you? Because
Yeah,
most
so
of your stuff is focused on like nonfiction, right?
right. And I worked with fiction authors, and I also cookbook authors and
Okay.
children's book authors.
Okay.
I Somebody asked me a question on recently, and I was not stumped, but it took me a bit of time to answer the question because it was such a great question. And it was kind of like, it must be so easy to do marketing for nonfiction books because here I am. This is what I do. Here's my book about it. And here's what I market. And I'm just marketing about, whatever it is that I do. So
Yeah.
I'm an IP attorney. And so therefore I just talk about intellectual property all the time.
Mhm.
And I said, and then they contrasted it with a fiction author who has created a world. And, how do you really market that? That must be so much harder. And I said, it's interesting because I approach every author as unique.
Yeah.
Their book is unique, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, and it presents a unique challenge that I get to help them overcome.
Hmm.
And furthermore, when you do something that is commonplace, like you're a life coach, for example, and you write a book about work-life balance, well, you may be able to post things about work-life balance, but how do you differentiate yourself from every other life coach who's
Right.
posting the exact same thing? Whereas as a fiction author, you've created a world in your brain that isn't like anything else that exists.
Right.
So even though they're vastly different, one is not easier than the other.
Yeah.
They each present, like I said, a challenge that I like to think of and overcome.
Yeah. I for the argument really, or not argument, but like when it comes to like nonfiction books, marketing is slightly easier on platforms like Amazon or something like that because you're first of all, Amazon's a search engine, but you're solving a problem, right? So people are searching for a solution. If your book matches their search, it's a fit. That when it comes to marketing, like my books are mostly like, archaeological thriller novels. So unless someone knows that they should be looking for that, just a book about Apush, the Mayan death god, or something like that, it's a little trickier
Yeah,
to
they're not like, how do I find a Mayan death god?
right.
They don't ask that in Amazon.
It's not as common a question these days.
Not these days. Maybe several thousand years ago on Amazon people were searching that, but not today.
I need to write human sacrifice for fun and profit, and that way I can attract that audience.
Yeah. Oh, actually, if you write a book about, the best ways to commit murder, people
Yeah.
will search that. Of course, your readership might be in prison at
Yeah,
some.
yeah. So I should partner with the FBI. Say, look,
Yeah.
I have an idea, guys.
Oh my gosh, this is a brilliant idea, and you
Yeah.
heard it here first.
Yeah. Or did you?
Oh,
Maybe you didn't.
it's like to catch a, what is it? To
Yeah,
catch a
what
to catch a
yeah,
predator.
exactly. To catch a predator. Yeah. Yes. I think I'd be in some jeopardy once word got out that I was a front man for snagging murderers and
Well,
people.
that's why you'd have a pen name.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. That's my side hustle. Uh, that's interesting. But you do work with fiction authors, you said. So, like, what are the that's probably I always assume that most of the people watching my show are fiction writers. Maybe they can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm a fiction writer primarily. Uh, what are your tips and tricks on that? Like, how gaining an audience? That discoverability thing is the biggest hang up for marketing fiction books. What's your go-to for that?
Okay. So, what's your book about? The Mayan death god.
Yeah,
All right, let's use that as an example.
let's do
So,
that. Yeah.
people who are interested in archaeology,
Mhm.
where do they hang out? I'm going to guess Facebook.
Yeah, probably.
And I'm going to guess that there are Facebook groups dedicated to random stuff. I'm
Yeah.
not random, but maybe esoteric
Yeah.
things, topics, such as Mayan death gods. And so starting there is a great place, because one thing you can do as an author is you can leverage other groups,
Yeah.
other platforms to start gathering your people around you.
Yeah.
So you want to find out where they are and go to them. Maybe there is an annual conference for people who love archaeology.
Yeah.
And maybe you have a booth there, or maybe you give a talk there, or maybe there's a swag bag and you put in something that has to do with your book, like a coupon to get you.
Yeah.
So you found the people who are interested in the broad topic, and then you can sort of build from there, invite them in to follow you, invite them to your email list, invite them to follow you on social media, and ultimately to buy your book.
Yeah. I like that approach. I mean, I hadn't thought about trying to attend like an archaeology summit or something. I know there's things like that happen. There's something here in Austin that I keep kind of threatening to go to, but I wasn't thinking about marketing my books there. I was kind of just going to go because I was going to geek out with the rest of the nerds.
But you could geek out and sell copies of
I
your
can
book.
do both. I'm a multitasker. So yeah, I can I can do both. I'll tell you another good market for fiction writers that you can use with your clients for free. And anyone listening here, you have to not promise you're not going to use it for yourselves. Uh, not true. Do it. The RV market. Go
Oh.
to RV. If you know of like an RV show or something that's going to happen in your world, your area, especially if it involves people who are RVing, who are traveling a lot, go and get a booth at those and promote your books there, because they're avid readers because they're usually retired. They're usually, they want something to read while they're on the road. So go use that market.
That is so smart. As long as they don't get car sick, you are so good.
Well, they would probably, because like I have audiobooks and I have, I mean, they'd probably be reading when they're set up, right? Like, but if they want to read on the road, audiobooks are a perfect fit for them. Like, you can hit the whole spectrum of at an RV show. It's a perfect
That's
market.
awesome.
I think of that all the time because my wife and I did the whole van life. We were full-time RVers for several years, and then we were full-time van lifers. And I've been thinking about this for years, but I haven't pulled the trigger on it, to be honest with you. But I'm convinced it's going to be a break open opportunity.
That's awesome. And you can create something that allows them to store their books in a compact way.
Yeah. Like what do you mean? Like a Kindle.
Yes, you could invent that. Or, because that may already be invented, you could, maybe it's like a book swap and they pay monthly.
So that's a good. So I like how we're ideating right here live on the show. So you could do how they have those what do they call those, where you pay a subscription and every month you get like a different box.
A subscription.
Yeah. You could do something like that. And then, but what you do is you build in a swap. So like they go and they get their fresh box and then they put their old books back in, because RVers don't have space, right?
Exactly what I was saying. They have
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. Yeah. We just invented something, and now everyone listening, it's ours. We have dibs. We licked it. It's ours. We're gonna make $1 million, Melanie.
Yes, we are. And that's another great example of how you can create ROI from the book.
Yeah. The gist here is, like, marketing does not have to be purely about running Facebook ads or I gotta get a billboard, or I even have to get on national TV or something. Like, there's a lot of things can qualify as marketing, right?
Absolutely. Marketing is when people are talking about you or your book when you're not in the room.
Yeah.
There, marketing.
Yeah. What about your books? Well, you got at least one. Well, you got more than one, right?
I have one that I produced with a group of entrepreneurial women for women entrepreneurs, and that's called Mission Possible. And then I have my standalone book, which is Make a Big Impact with Your Book. And it's for nonfiction authors to have long-term success strategies with their marketing.
And are you selling them, or is these just your calling card books?
Both.
Yeah.
I'm selling. I mean, I'm not actively at places trying to get people to buy them, but I did sell a few at the book fest.
Yeah.
People were like, "Oh, I want to buy this." I was like, "Well, let me sign it for you." It's really fun to.
That's the big draw of doing those things, is to be a big shot and sign stuff. I love signing stuff, and I've had people approach me sort of out of the blue. I've been in the airport a couple of times where somebody recognized me, and they didn't have the book on them, or maybe they had the ebook.
You signed them with a Sharpie?
I would do like one of them, they had like a bag from like Wendy's or something, so I'm like, let me sign that for you. And you get creative, and then that thing what's great about that stuff is it shows up on social media.
Sure.
Like, I actually put like the hashtag for them and everything. Hashtag, I don't know, Kevin was here or something like that, so that they can tag me.
That's awesome. See, that's great marketing.
Yeah. Tell you, the things like that, I think, are what I think more people, more writers, and more entrepreneurs should be thinking about, stuff like that. Like, how do I continue marketing even if I don't have the materials. Because like I run out, like when I go to conferences, I'll run out of business cards. Doesn't matter how many I take. And or I'll forget business cards altogether. So I found an app called Blink, spelled with a Q, Blinq. Uh, and that puts a little QR code on your phone. So like I started doing that and I realized, oh, I can put the book to get, the free book you get when you sign up on my mailing list. I put that in there. And so I have this whole thing now. I'm like, well, who needs business cards anymore?
Right. And this is kind of taking this conversation full circle.
Yeah.
Who needs business cards anymore? The thing is, like, I do collect business cards. I have a few right here,
Yeah.
showing, only because they help me not forget what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Like, I have it as a reminder. And then once I email the person, I recycle it.
That's where all my bookmarks come from. It's
Right.
all those business cards. Although I have far more business cards than I couldn't read as many books as I have so many. Like everywhere I go, I end up collecting this huge stack. So do you maintain a network? I mean, do you because you email people and you and I, after we chatted originally, we connected on LinkedIn. Uh, is that how you kind of keep up with everybody?
Oh yeah. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook.
Yeah.
And yeah, sometimes I email my list, but I also sign up on for other people's lists so I can know what's going on in their world.
It gets so overwhelming for me to email is like this monster that eats my life, you know.
Oh,
I
well, let
mean,
me help. I used to be there and
yeah.
I'm not there anymore. And what I did was I um created labels for
Okay.
everything. So now a lot of the emails I get go right to a folder, and so they're
Okay.
not in my inbox, and that has changed my life.
So you set up rules and you have folders and so emails from of a certain type go into that folder.
Yeah. So when
Yeah.
I have time to check the folder, I'll check the folder.
Yeah.
And so I wake up in the morning now and I have 5 work emails.
Yeah.
And it used to be like 30,
Yeah.
40 emails. And it just sets, I got a thumbs up for
You
that.
got a thumbs up for
It just
that.
it just sets you up for the day when you're not overwhelmed by email. Because But I do love email marketing though, because of how intimate it is
Yeah.
and how, that somebody opened it.
Yeah.
And not like on social media where you're just sort of spraying and hoping for the best.
I took a turn on how I handle my email marketing a while back because I used to send I always sent very what I call personable emails. But I tried to follow all the generic email rules and I got very little response, you know. The best responses I ever got were when I kind of broke the rules and I would share something like I tell people all the time about when I had a TENS unit. You know what those are? Basically, you're tasing yourself for therapy.
Sounds
It's
like
like a
fun.
little like yeah. So I had one of those, and was having a problem with my neck or shoulder or something. I put it on and I turned it on, but I when I turned it on, I didn't really pay attention to what it was set for, and it was set for like the highest setting. And so my whole arm started to spasm. So I instinctively reached out with my other hand to grab the electrode, which just meant that now both hands were in a spasm, and I had no way to turn off the unit. And so I had to drop it on the floor and like use my feet and things like that. And I wrote that, and my readers just loved that email. Like that was I got the funniest responses from that because when you show that you're a moron, people are willing to point it out, I guess.
But also, you told a story.
Yes, that's
And
what I learned from that. Yeah.
telling a story, it interests people and it's memorable.
Yeah. And if you're a writer, I mean, that's the whole point of this, right? Like you telling a story is kind of what I do. So, it's a good way to kind of cultivate and nurture a list. Yeah.
Absolutely. Did you have a call to action on it?
That's what's really funny about it is I didn't put a call to action in that email, but every email has a little blurb at the bottom about, find my books, click here to see my books. And I got a sales spike on that email, even though it didn't have a call to action.
No, you did have a call to action.
So I did. It just wasn't like an intentional one. It was just like my signature on the thing, where to find my books. So I have a call to action on every email, but I didn't like write that. That was the other lesson I learned was that if I don't have to make the email does not have to be about selling something. It can
Right.
be about anything, but the reward I can if I put a call to action in it, just make it organic to the email and I get a much better response. So there's a lesson.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great lesson. And it's that because you're the people on your email list are not, well, they've been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
They've been on your email list a long time. They've been on email for a long time. It's not like back in 2005 where things were still new and people could get away by being salesy and
Yeah.
spammy and people were like, oh, that's okay. I mean, my mom still tries to send me forwards.
Yeah.
And I have put the kibosh on that. And I say, please do not send. Do you remember that? Like
Yeah.
forwards. People be like,
Yeah.
here, you got to watch this video. No, I
Please
don't.
stop.
Stop.
Yes.
So now I've trained her well, and she will now ask me,
Yeah.
can I forward this thing to you? And I'll say, please do not.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then she,
The ones that the fight I'm in, it's like I want to get through to the people who are like, hey, I'm just circling back around to make sure you saw that, spammy ad.
oh, yeah, those are the
Yeah,
worst.
leave me alone.
Yeah.
I don't. There's a
Like,
reason you didn't hear back from me.
exactly. But they're those people who are like, it's a numbers game. It's just a numbers
And it
game.
is. I mean, I can't argue with that. It is a numbers game, and there is a legitimate thought behind that. But wouldn't it be better to instead of spending all that time and all those resources in in setting up that kind of automated reminder to actually think of ways to make the email you sent me much more engaging and much more enticing? You might encourage me to try something out. And don't pretend like we've met somewhere. That one bugs me too. Like,
Oh, yeah.
hey, Kevin, just following up with you uh, after that, after our meeting.
Yeah, the meeting that you had in your head.
Yeah, that never
Yeah.
happened. So, or, because I have a show, hey, I'm a big fan of the show. But I notice you're not showing up in search engines, and it goes into this whole
What is it called? There was a term for it where um men like insult women, and then when they insult them, it makes the women want to be with them more.
oh gosh, yes, I know what you're talking about. Um,
It sounds like Chet, but it's not. And
yeah.
I can't remember the word.
Oh
So
man,
almost like they're using that same technique. It's
yeah,
like you could be selling your book to millions of people, but because your website is awful,
yeah,
you
yeah,
never will.
yeah, yeah.
And you need my
You
help.
should trust me. I'm a well-meaning guy who has a service to sell you. That term is going to come in my head after we hang up, and it's going to crush me because I know exactly what you're talking about. Because it's that idea of also like paying a compliment and then like that sandwich technique of like pay a compliment, but then say something really awful, but then pay another compliment. And then their ego doesn't know what to do, and so they latch on to the positive things you said. So, oh well. Well, I hate to do this, but we're at time, and that's unfortunate because I we've talked twice now, but I've really enjoyed both times, and you're a delight to talk to, Melanie.
I have so much fun chatting with you too.
Yeah, well, we'll have to do it again. And we have a mutual friend we found out in Honore Quarter, which we did
Yeah,
not know that beforehand,
no,
but
did
yeah,
not know. Yeah, and
yeah.
she's wonderful things to say about her.
Uh,
She's
I love Honore. She's she hasn't been a guest since I've relaunched the show. She was a guest on this show at least 4 or 5 times, and then I've interviewed her on every other show I've ever done. And so
good.
she
She's
she and I
sure a
go way
great
back.
guest. Yeah.
So, well, anyway, before we check out of here, you got to tell everybody where they can find you and your work. Where can people check you out?
My website is vipbookmarketing.com and everything is there.
Excellent. And you can go search her up on Facebook and LinkedIn and all those places too, and connect with her. But vipbookmarketing.com, and I'll put links to that stuff in the show notes, Melanie. And I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for chatting with me and tolerating me for the past half hour or so.
It's been my absolute pleasure. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Now, thank you as well if you've tuned in, wherever you're tuning in from. If you're on the podcast and listening, hello. And if you're on YouTube, I hope I'm looking good to you. But stick around because I'm sure to say something really interesting after this interview, and you wouldn't want to miss that. So take care. I'll see you on the other side. Well, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Melanie. I know I did. She's a wonderful person. We've talked a couple of times now. I like what she's doing. I like her approach to marketing. Now, she aims mostly at like the nonfiction market, but I think a lot of what she talks about, a lot of what she does could be applicable. So make sure you reach out. I got links in the show notes for you to find her and her work. Anyway, here we are on the other side of the interview. This is usually where I have a whole lot to say, but I'm going to be honest with you. I'm still a little run down. I'm still kind of recovering. So I'm probably not going to make this too lengthy. But, yesterday, now I'm a week out, a full week out from being sick. And so I'm feeling better, doing better. I don't normally get sick. And in fact, I was only really sick for truly sick for a day. I had fever and low energy and a lot of congestion and coughing, and not a lot of coughing actually, but a lot of congestion. And, I took the day off, and yesterday, I decided to take that day off as well. That would be Wednesday for me. I'm recording this on June 13th, but so June 12th, Wednesday, I took the day off. I didn't intend to originally, but it sort of worked out that way. But one of the things I like to do, I like to go on drives. I like to get in my vehicle and just go find new areas, new neighborhoods, new things to explore that I've never seen before. Now we live in the Texas Hill Country, which has been amazing. We live close to Austin, so I can, in 20 minutes or so, I can be in the Austin city limits. We live kind of near the Arboretum, so that's a place I end up going pretty often because there's a Barnes and Noble there. Actually, there's 3 Barnes and Nobles within pretty close range of me. That's a little different from where I came from in the Houston area, where there was like 20 Barnes and Nobles around me, but you make do. But yeah, I went on a little drive yesterday. Now, the rest of the area near me is a mix. There's some urban areas. There's some suburban areas. There's some rural areas. I like to get off into the more rustic roads, and there's no shortage of those here. Lots of hills. We've got a great view in our home, but there's some places that I'm like, oh man, if I can ever snag this property, it would be like a dream. I have this idea, by the way, this goal, I guess, of a perfect home, perfect property scenario, and it's a little bit I thought impossible for a while, but now I realize I live in an area where this could be a reality. But Kara likes a sky view. She likes being up high, seeing valleys and lakes and things below her. That's her idea of a majestic view, of a great view. My idea of the perfect view is I like to be surrounded by trees and rock-strewn streams and paths, and I like that. I like to feel sort of hugged by nature. That's what that's what I like. And so I'm trying to kind of, as I visualize our perfect home, because for some reason we are never fully settled. The home we're in now is gorgeous, beautiful. We love it. It's got a great view. It does actually have a lot of the characteristics of what I kind of had in mind, but I can tell Kara and I are both still looking. Like I can tell we're still, like there's the feet first house has not yet arrived in our lives, I think. Could be wrong. But if you don't know what that means, think about it for a little while. Anyway, here in the Texas Hill Country, though, where we are in particular, it is possible to own a home that is on a hill that also is surrounded by woods, surrounded by forest, has a stream or river running through it, has, rocky outcroppings and things, but also lush green grass. It's possible to have that here, and that's amazing to me. And I guess what the point I'm trying to make here is that the thing that you're visualizing, that you want for your life, that goal or that dream that you hope for, dream about, wish for, work so hard for, sometimes it's going to feel like you want contradictory things and they're impossible for you. But the reality is we live in an amazing and incredible world where I think just about anything is possible. Maybe all things are possible. Well, according to my faith, according to Scripture, all things are possible through God. But depending on your flavor of faith or your perspective on the world, maybe things seem unreasonable. I get that. But don't give up. Don't give up. Keep looking. Keep working. Keep building. Persistence and consistency are magic. That's the greatest power we have at our disposal, is this, the discipline of keeping it up. Some days that's hard. Today was a hard morning for me. Like I woke up feeling a little, I don't know. I get these feelings. I wake up sometimes, I feel anxious, afraid, worried. I worry about money, or I worry about time. I worry about a lot of things. And then for me, I spend time in Scripture, and that helps me. Sometimes. I'll confess, not always. Even though I see a life of like God's influence, like I can look and see God's influence in what I've accomplished and what I've done in my life, there are, pardon me, there are times when I also find it hard to believe. That's bizarre to me, that I could experience the things I've experienced, know the things that I know, and still have doubts. You may feel like that too. I of course I'm of the Christian faith, so that's the lens I view life through. But I think what I learned from my study this morning was, when you really look, when you drill down deep, like the message of Christ was pretty simple. He only had like 2 commands, and one of those was love God, and the other was love others. That's the mission. So whatever your particular beliefs are, whether you believe in a deity or not, whether you maybe you're angry at Christianity and other faiths and religions, I get that. I can completely see why you would be angry. There have been some horrendous, horrible, wretched things done in the name of religion. But if you were to keep those 2 simple commands at the heart of everything you do, you are doing the work. You are doing the Great Commission. You are serving something greater than yourself. So do that. And with that, I'm going to wrap things up. I've got a little tickle, so I'm kind of struggling to not cough in your ear. I apologize for doing it just now. But whatever else you do today, I hope that you will go forward in that Great Commission, show love for others, help others. And I really appreciate you being here. Thank you for tuning in. If you don't mind, click on like and subscribe. Hit the little bell icon if you're on YouTube. If you're not on YouTube, if you're listening to this, maybe on a podcast, I think most of you are. Make sure you subscribe to the show on that podcast. Share the YouTube channel, the podcast, everything with the people that you know and care about. I hope that it blesses people. That's my goal. And there's some things coming up. They're going to kind of change the landscape a little. I'm still doing some planning to figure out what that's going to look like, but stick around for that. And otherwise, have a wonderful weekend ahead, weeks ahead, months, years, lifetime ahead. Bless you. God bless you from me to you. And I will see you all next time.
Wordslinger.